The Wilbur Street guy.
Yeah.
That you're telling me about, and I read that, and then like, I just started delving deeper because I figured there'd be more, and then I saw like articles and articles were like back like near his death, and I mean we're talking like 10, 11 years
Right.
since these articles were put out, so I had no real way of contacting somebody. But then I noticed in your YouTube videos that you had like people commenting from like a month ago, so I just felt like signing into my YouTube account, leaving some information, hopefully somebody would contact me, because I mean,
And I did.
yeah, you'd have more information and knowledge of it than I did.
Were you surprised?
I was really surprised. Like when you first contacted me, I was just like, wow. I mean, I wonder where I could go with this.
Do I have your permission to publish this on television and internet? To publish this?
Oh, I have no problem with that.
And your name again is?
Matthias Armstrong.
And you're the son of?
Brian Armstrong.
Who was murdered by the jailors almost exactly 11 years ago today.
January 18th.
January 18th, which is just next Tuesday.
Yep.
Hi. Good morning. It's 1:30 in the morning on Sunday in Tallahassee, Florida, and I'm here with Matthias Armstrong, the son of the man that was murdered, Brian Armstrong, murdered. It'll be on the 18th. In 3 more days, it will be exactly 11 years since Brian Armstrong was murdered in the Valley Street Jail, the infamous Valley Street Jail, where a lot of people have ended up dead when they're only supposed to be incarcerated. I'm William waiting for On Second Thought, hoping we bring you second thoughts. And I've been waiting since 2001 to do this interview. Ever since my wife and family held a candlelight vigil in Santa Maria, California at Main and Broadway for Brian Armstrong on the anniversary of his murder. I say murder because the state coroner of New Hampshire, in their official coroner's report, of which I have a copy, called it homicide. Now I want to ask the son of Brian Armstrong, Matthias, who happens to be going to college in Florida, and was gracious enough to come to do an interview on a very cold night early on Sunday morning. Dear Dad, I want to know what your very first earliest memory was and the last memory you have of him alive. Can you recall that?
My earliest memories with my father, I mean, it's been 11 years almost, so, just him going to my birthday parties and playing baseball with him, and just remember going to his softball games. And my latest memories, I can't exactly remember because I feel like I've repressed all those memories because of his death. And it's hard to remember the last time I saw him, because I remember being at the hospital, getting picked up from my mother, urgently. She never let me know until we got to the doctor's office that my father was in the hospital, and I wasn't allowed to see him when he was on his deathbed. So
you never saw him dead?
No.
What was the last day you saw him alive that you can remember? What was the circumstances?
I can honestly say that I do not remember the last time I remember seeing him alive.
How many years do you think it was that your parents had been divorced and you were just getting visitation with your dad?
I was really young at that point, so, I mean, I think I remember them being divorced for a couple of years, and we always visited at the same spot at his parents' house, and we'd always go for walks, Everything in his life was revolved around me, and all my family told me that, so it was just, when I was with him, it was me and him time.
So it was real quality time. He didn't just drag you along to things he was doing.
No, he wanted, like, first and foremost, like, just like I said, I mean, I was his life, and I feel like he did everything for me, and just always looked out for me before himself, and he was a great father for that, and just to have him taken away.
And you were how old? You're 19 now. This was 11 years ago?
I was 8.
How did that affect you when you realized you're not going to see your dad anymore? Do you remember having a reaction?
I mean, when I first figured out my father was dead, I was just a little kid, so, I mean, I just cried a lot, and just, it was hard, because I was in the second grade and it felt like everyone had a mom and a dad, so I just had to get used to it. I felt like he was still there though. For a few years, I still felt like he was there, that he wasn't dead. It's hard dealing with it.
Did it affect your performance in school or your attitude with anybody else?
It didn't really affect my performance in school. Like, I always maintained, like, my school because I always separated school from the rest of my life. But, I mean, I went through counseling and everything, and I felt like that helped because it was nice to have somebody to talk to and just, like, get my feelings out because I was just so young and confused.
What did your mother say about your dad? Did she have positive things to say about him after his death?
Yeah, she always spoke very highly of him and just always kept him in a positive light because he was my father. And
did they ever argue and fight? Did you ever see them fighting before he died during the visitations or when he
no,
would pick you up?
It was always really smooth, you know. They just dropped me off and it was just a good time after that.
Did your mother ever explain why they got divorced or what was the issue?
I can't honestly say why they got divorced. I mean, something just wasn't working. Probably had to do with my father's alcoholism or something like that. You know, just a lot of problems.
Do you think he developed alcoholism because he lost his job, because his job was exported out of the community, or do you think he already had an alcohol problem before that?
I think it goes further than that, than just his job. I think he had some deep-rooted problems to him because I've talked to my grandmother and my aunt, and they've always said that whenever my father talked, he was just like, he was always very like low on himself. He didn't have great self-esteem, so he just probably tried to drink all his problems away.
Do you think that was because he was adopted and he felt maybe disowned by his biological parents?
I believe so.
So it's important to have a relationship with your biological parents.
Exactly.
How old were you when you finally figured out that your dad didn't just die at age 41 for no reason? What did your mother and grandmother tell you he died from?
It was probably in the 8th grade or probably freshman year in high school where I always used to have car rides with my grandmother and we'd always talk about some stuff and I was just like, my dad didn't just die just falling in a coma, did he? And she's like, no. And I'm like, then why'd you guys tell me? And she's like, you were young and we couldn't just tell you your father was murdered or died in a jail. And I was just like, so tell me more. And she just told me.
What did she tell you exactly, your grandmother? Now, this was your mother's mother or your father's adopted?
My mother's mother.
Your mother's mother. What did she tell you exactly? Do you remember?
She didn't tell me much. She just told me that he was abused by the security guards or however you want to call them.
The jailers?
Yeah.
Did you know it was the Valley Street Jail?
I knew it was the Valley Street Jail.
And that's in what city?
Is that Nashua? Or is it Nashua?
I think it was Nashville or Manchester.
Yeah.
Which one?
I think it's in Nashua.
Yeah, you're from New Hampshire.
Yeah. I never had any intention of going there and knowing what that place was because, you know, knowing that my dad basically almost died there, you know, just kind of want to avoid it, you know, like I said, just trying to repress all the memories so long ago, just try to move on.
So you have moved on. You're going to college. How'd you do your first semester here?
I ended up with an above 3 GPA, so, I mean, that's
pretty good.
Being by myself down here, no family.
3.0 in your first semester. Do you like it down here in Florida?
I do like it down here, but I feel like I should be closer to home. I'm actually potentially transferring over to Boston University because it's just a lot closer to home and I'll be a lot closer to friends, you know, where my family is.
Have you ever visited your father's tombstone? Does he have a tombstone?
Yes, he does have a tombstone in Milford.
In Milford?
Yes.
Have you ever been there?
I visit there every year. Sometimes even. I mean, this last Christmas break I visited a few times and, you know, I said a few words and it's just depressing knowing that he's down there and when he should be here with me.
I think your dad would be proud to know that you've made it to college, that you've just got your life going. Do you look a lot like your dad?
My aunt says I'm a spitting image of him.
Do you have any photos of you and your dad together?
I do have photos of me and him together, but, I just don't think I know where they are. But my mom probably has them somewhere stored in one of the photo albums.
Have you ever read the New Hampshire State Coroner's report declaring this was a homicide? Do you actually read the actual document?
I didn't read the actual document because I was reading Wilbur Street's article that he put, and he put the hyperlink, and I copied and pasted it, but nothing came up, so it must have been avoided or something. But he said it was a homicide.